Well, this really is our salute to Amber. It's a salute to the fact that Amber has this unparalleled body of work, stretching back over 5 decades, over 20,000 photographs, over, I think, nearly or over or round about 50 films, more than that. With wide scope from fiction to documentary to hybrid fiction and documentary to photography, and a range of subjects. So it's a scale and scope which I think is unparalleled and deserves to be recognised and discussed and debated.
Amber's been going for 46, 47 years now, and there's an awful lot of work that's been done, and it seems a good time to reflect back and to look forward. Although these are enormously difficult times for documentary photographers and filmmakers, if you're worried about money, as most people are, but it's also an enormously exciting time in terms of where documentary can be going, and we're interested in that. We're interested in where we might be going. We're interested. Today we're looking back on sort of 70s, 80s, and tomorrow we're looking forward where we go from here. That's a simple split. Keep it simple.
In that time, I had another show with Tyne in 1987 when I showed The Blasphemous, which had been commissioned the year before by Photographers Gallery in London as part of the International Year of Industry. So what Tyne meant to me? Well, it's meant friendships and associations with people, but also in those first 4 years, and I did have a list, but I won't be able to find it, it had 14 really top-notch exhibitions.
Shortly after that, Tyne had commissioned, or previously commissioned Bruce Wright. I'd commissioned who shot in Easington a year previous, I think.
Just a month before
Oh, was it? Right. Well, so that was scheduled to show at Tyne Gallery in September, and I piggybacked onto that with pictures that I'd been shooting the week before, basically. I mean, it was great. We were just rolling with that. And the great thing that came out of that was that Tyne produced a set of postcards.
What the workshops did in the 80s, it didn't just happen by accident or fate or luck. It was worked for, and it was a lot of work to create that space. I mean, the Northeast workshops, Amber Trade, Northeast Films played a big part in that, and people like Murray Martin and Stuart McKinnon, Pete Bell went down every other week on the train to London to go to meetings in the trade unions and with Channel 4, with the Arts Council, to argue for this space, for this kind of work.
Radical it all seemed at the time when they were made. I remember T. Dan Smith, when that was shown, just the idea that you could be filming the interviewee at the same point of them watching themselves. It was just breaking down all those structures that mainstream broadcast had set up in one film. It was quite radical for its time. I think now you see some of this work and you take it for granted, but at the time it was, you would never have seen anything like that.
79. The year of Thatcher. Okay? And when you do the maths for the final time, you'd realize that this was also the period when the spectre of the post-industrial is raised. So there's this strange coming together of all sorts of currents, biographic, political, cultural.
Four quotes from people which say something about Amber representing a group of people. First one was, throws a huge chunk of my life at me. Okay. Second one, this is my life in here, love it. Third one, my life, my world, before my eyes. Okay, and the final one, like walking through my past. So you get a flavour there of people being represented, saying something back about how they're being represented.
I want to talk about resiliency. Okay, in a sense, you have to counterpose Amber's 45-year history, not with other collectives per se, but what is the normal arts career for people these days. Okay, what we're talking about is a sequence of part-time gigs, one after the other, that may eventually become a career. Okay, but in some sense, Amber's resiliency and its longevity is actually an oasis of stability. Now, I don't think anybody in Amber ever felt those 40 years were stable in any respect. But it provided a career path. And I think the very reason it provided a career path was because of its radical collective practices.
Amber came and we quite quickly realised that they weren't coming in to do something to us. They were coming in to work with us, to show other people what we were really about.
And we used to discuss, tell us about your life, tell us about your stories, tell us about the relationships you have, and expand on that. And they were making notes. And then it wasn't about, yeah, well, that's a good thing, but we'll change it and we'll have a big car explosion outside and people running in slow-mo away from a massive thing and everybody dive into there. Then somebody... You don't get anything like that on Amber.
We need to conjure a more imaginative engagement and understanding of the broader importance of film and television in the digital age, to move beyond the stunted idea of institutions as mere training providers, to a vision of filmmakers as cultural activists, creative artists, or even public intellectuals who are skilled craftspersons, technicians and producers. Actually, what I'm calling for is a kind of return to auteurism, which may not be fashionable or popular, but developing the right mix of theory and practice to produce a certain type of filmmaker, an auteur rather than a technician.
Make people themselves understand that their lives are relevant, that their experiences are part of the body politic. And I think that documentary and the archive, both contemporary documentary and the use of the archive, confronting challenging people with what the past shows, is a really important way of challenging the political orthodoxy that just dismisses everybody's ordinary lives. I mean, that for me is important.
And just one day we decided to meet offline, and it got on regular basis, so we started to meet every week. About 10 persons, and it was really important for us to discuss what we are doing, what we are thinking about photography. We thought a lot of work, films, and finally we decided to do something together. First it was the idea to do a project about the system, because all of us were born during the USSR, and so how the system influenced on us.
And I think we're just like silent filmmakers at the invention of sound. So we're really at a stage where the language and the processes and the types of ways that stories can engage the audience is really opening up. And having done both like Pixel Lab and also at MIT on a kind of fellowship, what I've also figured out is that nobody knows anything about what that future is. And everyone is scrambling around to try different things that may or may not work.
And it's been really heartening, from my point of view, I don't know about anybody else there, it's been really heartening from my point of view, that people have been really engaged and they have moved. You know, people have come from those different backgrounds. You know, there are film people here, there are photography people here, but they have engaged across recognising the kind of common interest in what lies behind all of it, which is kind of an engagement with the world, a way of being in the world, which more than, I mean, it's certainly an Amber thing, but more than, I mean, I think you were talking about a way of being in the world. And I think that, to me, is something to take away.